This is the Retirement Bullpen with Richard Warner. The team at Warner Financial Solutions want to help you feel confident about your retirement, no matter where you stand. Get more at warnerfinancialsolutions.com. Now, the Retirement Bullpen.
When it comes to retirement planning, few financial tools spark as much confusion or strong opinions as annuities. Are they a smart way to create income, or are they a misunderstood product that people dismiss too quickly? Well, today we are cutting through the noise to get real answers. You're listening to the Retirement Bullpen. I'm here with our host, Richard Warner. Richard is an investment advisor representative, certified retirement income professional, and owner of Warner Financial Solutions. You can learn more at warnerfinancialsolutions.com. Richard, I feel like the word annuities is, to some people, a four-letter word, and to other people, it's their favorite thing. Why is there such a big divide?
So it's very complex and confusing. And to be honest, I think a lot of times they are, I'm not going to use the word advise, sold to people from a standpoint that really just focuses on what the client will like and get out of it, but not educating them. But every investment has negatives. So you have to understand how it fits with everything else and the pros and the cons. And I don't think a lot of people do. Even if they understand them well, there's still a lot that they don't understand. So complexity is a big part of it.
Well, let's start with the basics, because first and foremost, not all annuities are created equal. So could you break down some of the most common types of annuities that we see and hear talked about so that we have a clear picture of what exactly they are?
So there's three main types. There's more than that are out there, but the most utilized are fixed, which is simply an account held at an insurance company that generates a fixed rate of return over a period of time.
Not unlike a CD.
Yeah, exactly. Very similar conceptually to a CD. Yes. The longer you have for a duration or contract, the potentially more interest you'll get. But you're going to know exactly what you get from start to finish. The second type that's probably become the most popular over the last 10 or 15 years is fixed indexed or indexed linked fixed annuities. So those are also fixed and guaranteed from the standpoint of you can't lose money from a principal standpoint in regards to market losses. But your returns are not necessarily guaranteed. It's possible in some of these accounts or contracts, you could have your funds in there for a period of time and receive zero returns. You couldn't lose anything,
okay,
but you could potentially not gain anything. Your returns are based on market indexes. So for example, if you're following the S&P 500, the S&P 500, they're going to have a starting point each year. So typically the contract date when you started, and they're going to look back at what the S&P 500 did over that first year. Or sometimes it's 2 years or even 3-year terms inside the contract. But let's just keep it simple and go year to year. So let's say January 1st of this year, we started a contract. January 1st of next year, they're going to look at what the S&P did between those two periods of time. And if it goes up, they're going to give you a percentage of that. They may give you up to a particular cap. But if it goes down, you're not going to get any loss. They're never going to give you all the upside. I shouldn't say never. Rarely they're going to give you all the upside. But you're not going to participate in any of the downside.
So if the market goes up 10%, you just using generic numbers here, if it went up 10%, we might get a 5% on ours. But if it went down 10%, we got zero. We stayed where we were.
Exactly. That's a really good example, a really good analogy. That very accurate to what the marketplace is probably doing right now too. So yeah, good example.
Does that reset? So again, using the example of we started January 1st, at the end of January 1st, we say it went up 10%. Is that now my new floor? So if I made 5%, if I put $100,000 in and I made 5%, so I've got $105,000, is that my new floor that I can no longer go below? Or am I my floor is always the initial amount that I put in?
Your floor is the initial amount you put in plus the gains that were credited to your account. So that example you used would be $105,000 minus anything you withdrew out of the account. But yes, you pretty much got it right. Your floor is not what you put in by itself. It's what you put in plus your gains.
And so that floor sort of resets every year at that annual contract. So if I'm in it for 5 years, if I gain the first 2 years, on the third year I had nothing and I gained year 4 and 5, I've gained 4 out of the 5 years.
Exactly. Even if that one down year was down significantly.
We just stayed at 0.
You just did a 0 in your account. But a side benefit of this is now you have a lower starting point for that next year term. So it's easier to go up in that fourth year, based on your example, than it was originally because the S&P started significantly lower because it went down. But your account value stays where it was. So you've got a lower starting point in the marketplace, but the same amount of money to grow from.
Got it. Okay.
Which is a benefit over if you were invested in the S&P 500.
Sure, because then you're riding the waves in both directions.
Exactly. So again, pros and cons, but that's a good way to explain how it works, yes.
And what's the third most common type of annuity?
So the third, and becoming, in my opinion, less popular, I have not utilized one of these for probably over 20 years, and that's a variable annuity.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I think they're less common is very simply because of costs. They tend to be very internally expensive. That's probably the big negative. The other thing that people don't tend to like is most people purchase or invest or utilize an annuity in their portfolio for safety, for guarantees. And yes, some variable annuities do have some guarantees tied to them, but every time there's a guarantee tied to it, you're going to add an additional fee. So they can get super expensive, anywhere from 2, 3, 4. I've seen over 5% internal fees inside of an annuity for. If you just have a straight flat annuity with no extra guarantees to it, you're still going to have what's called a mortality and expense rider inside of that as an additional fee. So there's always either a fee and some risk, or a lot of fees and minimal risk. So when you look at those two things together, if a person is utilizing an annuity for safety or for a guarantee, why would you buy something or invest in something that's super expensive to get those when you can get a similar comparable product on a fixed side that has no risk? Now, they can have fees as well, but they tend to be much lower, and most of them don't have fees. When I say fees, I'm not talking about necessarily caps or limitations of what you get. I'm talking about a straight 1% fee to the account.
Mm-hmm.
Fixed and fixed index tend to not have those, but can if you add additional things to them.
And on a variable, some of those can be as high as 3% just to manage. So you've got to be making even more than that before you're ever putting $1 in your account.
Exactly. And so when the market comes down in a variable, because now you're taking market risk, because you're you're investing in sub-accounts, which are very similar conceptually to mutual funds. Not exactly, but real close.
Mm-hmm.
They just tend to be more expensive. And that's an internal cost as well, not even some of the other fees. So you've got internal costs in the sub-accounts. When those come down, the market's lost value, your account values came down, plus you have super expensive fees inside that are still being charged. Plus, if you have the additional guarantees added on, you've got more fees. It takes some really good years when you've had a bad year to even bring your values back to where you started. So again, the reason they become less popular, just kind of to summarize, is they have a lot of risk and people get them because they don't want risk. And they're super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to be in the market, my feeling is be in the market.
Do you think that part of the issue with annuities and why there's such strong opinions around it is because people lump them all under the same umbrella, and they hear a horror story of, I had an annuity, I only got, my mother put X amount of dollars away and she only took $3,000 out and then she died and the rest of it was gone. And we assume all annuities fall under that one umbrella.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I use an analogy talking about annuities. This isn't necessarily a true story, but I think it's a good example where annuities started. So I won't use the insurance company's names, but customer XYZ went to ABC Insurance Company after he retired with his $100,000 check 120 years ago. And he deposited into an annuity, and they guaranteed they were going to give him a payment every single month for the rest of his life. They wrote a check for the first payment. He walked out the door, and as he crossed the street, he got hit by a Model T car and was killed. The only thing his family got out of that was that check. They lost the remaining $99,000 and some change, whatever that was, because he had a single life annuity. So a lot of annuities are tied to annuitization. Very rarely is it used for that today, but it can be. They still can be. And so it becomes much like a pension, and then you lose all control of your money. A lot of today's annuities have income riders attached, will give you similar benefit, but you don't necessarily lose control of the money. You still have access to it. So there's scenarios like that, but they get lumped into the thought process that once you give it to an annuity, all my money's gone, I can't get to it. That's true with a pension because you have an amount of money that accumulates to kick out a payment to you. And annuities can have that aspect, but most annuities don't. And the other is the fees, and the variable annuity stories, I think, is a lot of it. But one other that comes up, I think a lot of people get sold, and I mentioned this kind of at the beginning, a lot of people get sold on this concept that I can put my money in. If the market goes up, I'm going to get the upside. If the market goes down, I'm not going to lose anything. But they don't realize there's limitation. You have limited liquidity out of all annuities.
Mm-hmm.
It could be interest only. It could be a free withdrawal of 10%, 15%. That free withdrawal could accumulate. There's all kinds of factors, but usually you can get some of your money out every single year. But some people get, I'm going to use the word conned because I feel like that's what it is, conned into putting all their money into annuity.
Right.
And 6 weeks later, something comes up and they find out I need some money and they can't get any out until after the first year, and they left nothing on the side liquid. So the only way they can get their money out is to pay a 5, 6, 10, 12, 15% penalty sometimes to get their money out. So then that fixed annuity or variable annuity or indexed annuity becomes very, very expensive because they've just got whacked with a penalty because I don't want to say they were misinformed, but they just didn't get all the information.
Who is a good candidate for an annuity being part of their portfolio? Because to your point, you don't want to have everything lumped into that because you might need some of it. And having liquidity is one of the issues that people mention when it comes to having an annuity in the first place. So what is a generic good situation to at least start the conversation to know if it might be right for you?
I tend to think that the closer you are to retirement, the better, but that depends upon your risk tolerance. Some people have very minimal risk tolerance. So they may get to a point in their retirement planning strategy that they have accumulated in their mind enough money to retire, but maybe they're just not ready or want to retire yet. So they could be a good candidate to take some of that and peel it off and put it into something that they can't lose. It depends upon risk tolerance, though. For example, I personally take a lot of risk in my investments. Not ridiculous risk, but I'm not scared of market risk. Not everybody necessarily feels as strongly about that. So myself would not be a good candidate today at 50 years old for an annuity. Now, 10 years from now, that could be a little different because yes, I still might be an aggressive investor, but I may have some money I want to lock in.
Mm-hmm.
And lock in meaning once I put it in that fixed or fixed indexed account, I can't lose the value and I can lock those gains in as they go. The other side of that is where we typically in our practice use a fixed annuity or a fixed index annuity is as a bond alternative. I'll say this again to be very clear. You never, ever want to put all of your money into an annuity because you're going to have limited liquidity. So for example, let's say you're a 60-40 investor. You might keep 60% of your funds in a liquid managed investment account, and you may put 40% of those funds inside of a fixed index annuity as an alternative to a bond. Does a couple of things for you. It reduces your management fees, or maybe if it's a commissioned type of account, it reduces the commission that you will be charged to put your money in that account. And historically, again, I can't say this is going to happen in the future. Historically, fixed and indexed have outperformed your bonds, your treasuries, those types, specifically the things that don't have market risk. So even bonds have some market risk at times, not as much as, say, a stock or a mutual fund, but they have some market risk. So you can reduce your management costs, you can reduce your risk, and improve your overall potential. And potential is a key word because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but potential for returns by utilizing a strategy like that. But again, the key, don't put it all there because then you have limited access. You need a place to go in lots of different scenarios.
You mentioned briefly the idea of using an annuity as part of an income plan and deriving income. Would you touch upon that a little bit? Because we hear about them being used to supplement in cases where perhaps there wasn't a pension. And so now someone's just left on their 401k withdrawals and their Social Security, and maybe they need to close the gap. Talk to me a little bit about what that looks like and when it should and shouldn't be part of a conversation?
So if there is an income gap, how do we determine that? Well, we look at your expenses going out and what we know is coming in. So if your only income payment in retirement is Social Security, there might be a gap there. There's two ways you can utilize your funds. You can just take a withdrawal rate out of them and hope for the best, or you can peel off a portion of that, put that in a fixed index annuity with an income rider that guarantees that income payment for your life and maybe for the life of you and your spouse, that fills that gap between your Social Security and your need. That allows you to do a couple things. Number one, every month this paycheck's coming in and the Social Security paychecks are coming in, and this meets our expenses. So I don't have to worry about what the market's doing on the other side, because the other side and your other account that you definitely want to have as well that's liquid, you can afford to take a little bit more risk then because you have so much sense of certainty on the income side. So these can be a good fit. Where they're not typically a good fit is when somebody already has plenty of income coming in. So then maybe you still want some safety. You probably don't need quite as high of a percentage in a annuity type of an account at that point, but you still may want some safety just because of your own personal risk tolerance. So you can put that in a safe growth type of an account, which doesn't have anything tied to it at all. And then you can take withdrawals as you need them based on the free withdrawal and the other liquid account that you have.
Well, as we've heard, annuities are not a one-size-fits-all, but with the right guidance, they can play a powerful role in your portfolio and as part of your retirement. To explore whether or not they make sense for you and your situation, you can reach out to Richard by visiting WarnerFinancialSolutions.com and scheduling a complimentary consultation. And of course, be sure to subscribe wherever you're currently listening so that you never miss an episode. And we thank you for joining us.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business, Warner Financial. Warner Financial is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, IPW, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Warner Financial are not subject to investment advisor requirements. NPN number 7617022. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be considered as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Warner Financial is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Warner Financial.